Okay, YouTube, Todd here again, some guitar guy. First off, and as always, thanks for watching. So, yeah, another X-Plane video, another Ercoupe video, and exciting news to me anyway. I have re-released the XPFR version of the 1946 ERCO Ercoupe. Can't speak today. I've been given permission by Frenchy, I guess the lead creator back in the day when she was released, and sent in my updated ACF file with all the adjustments I've made. And sadly, this is he's no longer simming nor creating. The project is a dead project with no updates planned. So yeah, he gave me permission to do so on the condition that the original creators like himself get due credit, which I absolutely agree with. They did a marvelous job overall, and it's a fantastic looking plane, and pretty much, there are some squawks, which is, again, the adjustments, but I mean, it really does perform and fly pretty well overall. I think I would probably, 4.5 stars or 4 stars maybe at the worst. But here's a look, and I'll link all this in the description. You see that 21 reviews, 5 stars, or well, 4.619. Okay. Um, six pushing 7,000 downloads, over 33,000 views. It's been up since 2017. And if you click the download button, it's just going to take you to their site. I'm not actually on that plane, but to here, and a little bit about it. And this, I really love this. That XPFR apparently stands for the Association of French-Speaking Creators. All this stuff is freeware, all of it. All these planes, scenery, utilities. I mean, it's amazing. It's an X-plane. It's truly an X-plane find. So let's take a look at the pictures. This is get pixelated when I maximize it, but they modeled, uh, off of a real world plane, which the panel looks almost identical to this. Some great shots. That's of course in the sim, and then point that out. This is the split elevator version, which makes it eligible for the cheap STC, which I'll get to. So yeah, a little pixelated. Maybe it looks better smaller, but a true find in all respects, and was really excited to be given their permission. So yeah, and people are downloading it already. It's been up a couple of hours now, 3 hours about. 42 downloads and 173 views, some comments, and yeah, just really excited to kind of revive this and get it out there. In my opinion, of course, I'm biased, but I think it ought to be in everyone's hangar. And it was billed as the world's safest airplane. That was the design intent, to make a spin-proof and stall-proof airplane, taking advantage of the post-war boom here, and they did. Um, but kind of get into the not only that's part one, is it is re-released and available with my tweaks, uh, and I'll kind of get into what I did here. And I keep thinking of other stuff I've done in editing my original post. But the first thing that jumped out to me as a real world pilot when I'm entering all this information about the plane in my EFB is the weights didn't make well, they made sense, but they kind of didn't make sense because the original empty weight was 969 pounds. And if I can remember the math, let me just punch it in to make sure that I'm giving you accurate numbers. The original gross weight of the plane was 1260, and subtract 969, that only leaves 291 pounds for you, fuel, whatever that you're going to put in there, and your gross weight. Um, so I think the 969 is a bit heavy for a stripped down basically version of the plane with fabric wings, a wooden prop, and just the barest of bones instrumentation. So I did a lot of research, used ERCO's own numbers and the electrical system, the starter and all that. That adds up to 51 pounds. So from the 749 empty weight, so 220 pounds lighter, um, 749 for the bare bones non-electrical version. Um, adding the 51, that brings you to 800 pounds. Added another 10 to kind of be, reasonable. Um, Here in the States, you would be required to have an ELT. Um, there, I didn't read anything for the radios well, actually I did. I think the radio from the original brochures was like 25 pounds or something. But radio, MOTSI transponder, ADSB out, but then, and all that's adding weight, of course, but there are now lightweight alternatives to the original generator. So an alternator and probably not lightweight alternator, lightweight battery, um, and lighter weight starter. So empty weight, and even on the Ercoupe forums, the kind of basement level is 850. So I may have gone a little light on this, but I've played around with it and I've spent a lot of time on this, and I really couldn't tell much. Really couldn't tell the difference in the flight characteristics. But if you want to be truer, then please, by all means, bump it up to 850. But I don't think it's going to weigh, much heavier than 810, maybe 825 under these conditions, right? With and spotlessly clean. So what, 80 years now of dirt inside the wings and the tail and all that stuff cleaned out. Um, but that gives you a much more realistic, useful load. And then the STC I mentioned, that is available for 75 bucks, and it is a 60 pound 60-pound increase in the gross weight up to 1320. So, and this airplane in the real world would be available. Actually, I think they all are. It depends on the elevator and trim design, but this is the newer elevator, the split elevator with the upgraded trim control. So yeah, it would be $75 for 60 pounds. Yeah, that's just over $1 a pound, and yeah, real world plane. Yeah, absolutely, and much more. I mean, that's 60 more pounds, right? So 10 more gallons of fuel, or you know, whatever, a big dog, whatever else you wanted to put in there. And then the other thing that jumped out at me was well, I didn't actually, I probably should have put these in reverse order, but the fuel would have been the next thing that jumped out as I'm entering this in my EFB, because the original plane only has one tank. I believe it was 99.9 pounds of fuel, which works out to like 16 and 3/4 gallons. And of course, ERCO didn't make this easy because they had several different fuel tank configurations during the production run. The the least common denominator for fuel tanks was one header tank and one wing tank in the right wing, but those came in different volumes, right? But the CG would have been, would have been the same. Um, and then, of course, the most common is a tank in each wing plus the header tank. And the header tanks varied in volume between 5 and 6 gallons. And I think the wing tanks varied between 8 and 9. But the wing tanks, the way the fuel system works, the wing tanks feed the header tank. So the header tank always stays full. And then the header tank gravity feeds the carburetor. So yeah, no inverted flight or anything. But the fuel capacity, jumped out at me entering this in my EFB. So after posting a video, an Ercoupe video, and somebody else commented on the same thing on the descent rate, I decided to try to get in here and see what I could do. But I have located 2 additional fuel tanks with the what I think are the correct CGs based on ERCO's own weight and balance sheets. So it has a 6-gallon header tank and 2 9-gallon wing tanks, one in each wing. Um, and then while these kind of happen at the same time, the center of gravity of the original plane was actually below. It was somewhere down here, which made, and I have tried aileron rolls with it in the sim. I don't know I would do that in the real world, but it did make it wobble because it's rotating around this point instead of a point inside the plane. But I did correct that using ERCO's own weight and balance specs. And that these things together made a big, huge difference in just the way the plane felt in the sim, the way it reacted. Um, it just felt more balanced because it was, and it didn't turn it into a MiG or anything, but yeah, I mean, it really felt a lot better. And then I adjusted the fuel burn. I think they had the fuel burn way low to give the plane, the original plane actually had more range with 16 gallons than the real plane with 24 gallons. So experimented around and got the fuel burn about right at about 5 gallons per hour. In the real world, they may, you may get a little bit better fuel mileage than that, maybe down into, 4 gallons per hour, but that's pretty realistic, I think, for flight planning and conservative for flight planning. Uh, and then the next thing, I kept this one of the comments about the plane didn't have enough drag stayed in my brain, and I kept thinking, I'm like, well, how am I going to introduce more drag into this plane? Put a parachute on it or something. And then I started researching props, and there are actually quite a list the FAA approves for this plane. But for wooden props, they approve any prop that meets the RPM restriction 72 to 74 inches. So I'm like, well, what's on here? So I look and it's a 68.4 inch prop. And I'm like, that's why after climb out and you level off, I mean, climb out in the original plane, you're right at redline. And then when you drop the nose a little bit for a cruise climb, you're in the red and you have to throttle back a little bit. And I always thought that was a little screwy, that they probably wouldn't design it that way. Well, it didn't have enough prop. So, and if you've gone into the prop, any of these menus in PlaneMaker, I mean, oh my God. An engineer probably understands them all, but I'm no engineer. So my quick fix after, well, it wasn't a quick fix, cross-referencing this, that, and the other. I found a J3 Cub with the same prop and actually bought it and just transferred those values over to the Ercoupe. Now they may not be exact, but The plane likes it a lot better. It doesn't feel like the engine's, screaming all the time. You don't have to throttle back to drop the nose to 75 knots. It just flies better with the 72. And you can try a 74 or even up to a 76. I think that was maybe on the Continental 65 that came into play maybe its very first year or early on in the production year. But I settled with the 72. It seemed to be the happy medium, and the plane not only flies better and seems happier, it's faster. Yeah, it's right at 90 knots in relatively calm air. And then the engine mount was another thing. I had read or heard or both back a year and a half. I don't think it's been 2 years yet, but that the engine was actually mounted offset a couple of inches, and that's all I had. And I tried to find that again, and I think I heard that in a video, but nothing definitive, like it's 2.375 inches offset. But they, of course, they did that to offset adverse yaw and the propeller effect because you don't have rudder pedals on the ground, right? And then in the air as well. But it turns out and actually got if you go to ERCOPinfo.com, I mean, all the information you'd ever want. And that's what the original developers used. But a lot of this, I think, in creating the plane was compromised, like the fuel tank. I think that was the easier option. And maybe I think a lot of this was trying to keep with this spin-proof, stall-proof model. Um, but anyway, back to the offsets. The original real-world plane came with the engine canted 3.5 degrees to the right and 5 degrees down. So that's actually a negative value in PlaneMaker. Um, to A, offset the prop yaw or the adverse yaw, and then B, to keep the prop from stalling. So it's angled down 5 degrees. So it's kind of trying to pull itself slightly down. And I fooled around with this, and I went back to the initial settings, finished all the other tweaks, and then went back to this, and that seemed to be the cherry on top. She really does like that 5 degrees down. Now, in the sim plane, I could not get beyond the original setting of just a half degree. If you go now I didn't, experiment, 0.535 or anything. I just left it at the point 0.5. But at 3.5, the airplane's trying to pull right all the time. So you'd have to counter that with, left aileron and rudder, and that's just going to slow you down and all that. So I just left the original point 0.5, but the real world planes are canted quite that, are canted that much. So some housekeeping again. I can't fix everything, and some of this may one of the commenters pointed out it may actually have the wrong wings on it. They don't look wrong, but in the modeling they could be the wrong airfoil, so that could be a case for why it didn't have enough drag. And that's really kind of beyond what what I can do. He's looking into that, thankfully, and maybe that will be the answer. I did fix the starter torque issue while I was in there. That kind of think of things along the way. The engine horsepower was 74.99, so I cleaned that up. I enabled the stall horn, but I think I think if I were you, I would go back in and disable it because it's more annoying than it is helpful. And I respond in the comments how to do that if you're unfamiliar. It's just unchecking two boxes. Um, I still can't get the single comm radio included to work. I use ATC Chatter, so it really kind of doesn't matter. But and I would actually prefer the airspeed indicator to be in miles per hour rather than knots. It's in knots, and changing that stuff or anything in the cockpit or anything else you're talking about working in Blender and basically making uh, a new plane unless you have the original files, which I don't. So that's a little bit more than I want to get into. And I would prefer an oil temp gauge. There's a oil pressure gauge and a fuel pounds gauge, but not an oil temp gauge. And even though in the original cockpit it didn't show an ammeter or voltmeter, I would prefer to have that and an EGT for leaning. Um, and then this one, I might probably should have put it first. I don't know why, but X-Plane, when you start a new flight or first flight of the day, it puts no fuel in the header. And I don't know how to make it not do that. So when you start, first start your flight, you'll have to go into weight and balance, enter whatever your payload is, and then that header tank. The only time the header tank is below full is when your wing tanks are empty. So that, yeah, you need to, or you should fill it up with 36 pounds of fuel before each new flight, and check it and make sure because X-Plane, it doesn't read some of the stuff exactly right. But anyway, I think that is the gist, and well, not the gist, that's the detail of everything. But yeah, the my tweaks are available again with the original creators permissions. um, would love to hear, especially if you've flown an Ercoupe in the real world, how this one compares, because that's kind of my goal, is to make the most accurate flight model available. The the original, I mean, that was my original exposure to the Ercoupe. I thought it flew fine, but I do think these tweaks, and you can do them yourself. You don't have to download mine. I mean, you can go into PlaneMaker and do all this stuff yourself, and maybe even make more and better improvements on it. And please, if you do, I'd love to hear from you. Post up. Uh, Probably a lot of things I haven't thought of. But yeah, so that's what I've done so far. I really don't see doing too much else to the plane. I'm really curious about the airfoil, and to see if it is the correct airfoil or not. And if it's not, yeah, that would definitely be another version coming out. The landing gear, I need to put that in there. That's a squawk too. It stays extended like this all the time on the ground. You can put max where you can overload it, and it's going to stay fully extended like this all the time. I would like to fix that. Um, but again, that's going to be, basically a new plane, because I can't edit what Blender, and I think they did use Blender to make it. I can't edit that in PlaneMaker. But yeah, I'm starting to ramble, so I guess we'll wrap it up. Please remember to do the YouTube thing, and until next time, happy landings. Thanks, guys.